My name is Kimberly Jackson, and I'm the Executive Director for the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, or as we say, ISPS. The Institute was a gift from Congressman Bill Young that sits at St. Petersburg College for the benefit of the Florida college system. What we try to do is make sure that we engage with students and educate them on social, political, and economic programming. This year, we're very privileged to do something innovative. We are in the Chris Sprouls Innovation Center at our Tarpon campus in St. Petersburg College. And our moderator, Dr. Allison Hale, who sits on our board, is actually at the conference for the Association for Florida Colleges in Orlando. So this is the first time that we are doing two simultaneous rooms. I'm very proud to have her support us as the Dean of Workforce for Pasco Hernando College. And behind me, which is awkward, but behind me we have our esteemed panelists, Jeff Baker, who is the Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy, and Rachel Ludwig, who is the Florida Chamber Vice President of Talent Development. And I hope you don't mind me saying it. She's here working on her birthday, so we're very grateful for her presence. And with that, we're going to try this new experience. We're thankful for the audience that's here watching us in person and for the audience that is in Orlando. And Dean Hale, please take it away.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to this innovative event. I'm in Orlando. We're also in Tarpon Springs, Florida. So hopefully technology is on our side today. Happy birthday, Rachel. So hopefully birthday wishes go towards us getting through this without any technology hiccups. I first want to mention the focus is on workforce. That's my day job. Is I deal with workforce development, career and technical education. Part of my reasoning for being here is we have meetings 3 times a year, and my colleagues are going to be meeting shortly on workforce and to talk collaboratively. And interestingly enough, our esteemed Governor Ron DeSantis, when he first took office in 2019, collaborated the executive order 1931 to make Florida #1 in workforce in 2030. I even did a little research last night, and since 2019, the state of Florida has allocated around $3.5 billion. That's a lot of zeros towards workforce. I know my institution has gleamed off of some of that with some dollars. Last year, we had $3 million of that. I know St. Pete College also has had some dollars where I think they recently received $4 million for the CAP grant. So there's continually working on funding, and so glad that we have these dollars that we can build our workforce, because that's much needed, so that way we build jobs of today for employees tomorrow. So starting with our first question, with emerging industries in Florida to create new job opportunities, how can people prepare themselves for these new roles? And I'll kind of toss that off to the panel. You start with Rachel.
I think that's for you all. Please go.
Yes.
Rachel, is your microphone?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear
Yes.
you.
Yes. Okay, great. Yes, so I think this is a really exciting time in Florida. I often say that, whatever age that you are, if you can dream that career, you can be that career right here in Florida. When a lot of kids grow up, they have these career dreams, and you can be an astronaut, you can be and work for NASA, you can be a marine biologist, you can do all these things. And that's really what's awesome. In terms of emerging careers, there's a lot of investment happening right now to really increase and beef up our manufacturing here. So semiconductors is something that, we're seeing more companies move into Florida, especially on the Space Coast area. And I think we'll continue to see that with the development of the space academies, and several institutions across the state are kind of hopping on board with Space Florida and things like that. There's just a lot of really great opportunities in Florida for those folks who know about it. And so that's part of my role at the Florida Chamber Foundation, is to really raise awareness about those high demand career opportunities and sort of some of the pathways And so our state college system and our universities and our technical colleges are fantastic, and they all offer really wonderful opportunities. And so I think I would encourage the folks in the room and the folks listening to really explore those opportunities and continue to be engaged. Cybersecurity is another one that we're seeing lots of investment. We have centers throughout the state, and it's really, really exciting work. And that work is definitely going to continue to grow. So that's my answer, and I'll pass it along here.
Jeff?
Since my area of expertise is the energy industry, what I would say is in our industry, you're going to see two things happen. We're going to continue to maintain the traditional careers that many of you would think about, such as engineering, linemen, things of that nature, but also anything to do with sustainability or resiliency, I think is a great opportunity for someone who is looking to come into the energy industry. The reason for that is, our customers are demanding increasingly clean energy, and that's something that we're working very hard to achieve. Like, for example, Duke Energy, we plan to be net zero by the year 2050. So we got a lot of people focused on that, but also living here in the state of Florida, I think we can all agree the hurricanes are becoming more frequent and stronger. So we're looking at ways to strengthen our grid to make it more resilient to storms. So I would think those would be the two emerging type careers that you'll see in our industry over the next couple of years.
Thank you. So next up, and I'll pass this to Jeff first. How do internships and apprenticeships fit into the workforce development landscape, and what steps should students take to secure these valuable experiences?
And I think that question is sort of position specific. A lot of our careers, like engineering, for example, those would be the great positions where you would go down the traditional paths of internships and things of that nature. Because we do bring in quite a few interns for those programs to work with our staff to see if this is something that a student might be interested in pursuing. But looking at the more traditional careers like linemen, I almost see what we have, our partnership that we have with St. Petersburg College. We have a lineman's program, and it's not really an internship per se, because the student does sign up for this program, but it's a 14-week introduction to line work. And even though it's you're actually doing this through the college, it's kind of how we are utilizing the ability to see if this is a good fit for us as well. So those students who choose to go down that path in a very short period of time, they can, in this particular program, 14 weeks, they can determine if this is the right fit for them. And it also gives us the benefit of being able to work with the instructors to find out, are these students the right fit for us? So it's not a traditional internship, but we are using it in many ways like an internship. And the apprenticeship for those programs would actually happen on the job, because when you get those line skills, you're not qualified, after 14 weeks of training to come in and do the work that we do. Keep in mind, the work that these men and women do, it's very hazardous work. And I use the word hazardous and not dangerous because you can mitigate hazards. And that's what we teach you to do through your apprenticeship programs. And those programs typically last, it's individually dependent on the skills of each individual. But for most people, it's around 2 to 4 years that you're an apprentice with us before you become a certified journeyman, to where you're able to do any of the type of work that we need you to do, without assistance from others.
That's excellent. Yeah, I can add, I think the sort of earn while you learn model is increasingly more popular and important today for a variety of reasons. From the learner's perspective, it's important to get exposure earlier into some of what the workforce is going to look like, to decide if you like something or not. But also to build a network and to build a relationship with people that can mentor you and can support you kind of throughout your career. And I always say, the mentorship piece is really important, and that stuff can be, there's a lot of skills that you learn just even from observing a workplace. So internships are super beneficial. I think from the employer's perspective, we talk a lot about this with our Future of Work Advisory Board. they're seeing that these internship programs are a true talent pipeline because they're hiring and converting these interns into full-time employees at the end. Like you were saying before, it allows for the employers to really see who is a good fit for the organization and also who is coachable, who is maybe, going to be somebody that they want to invest in terms of a full-time opportunity. And then, one thing I would say as well is you're not sure like what is going to come your way, but I'm a first generation college graduate. And so an internship can provide that opportunity and exposure to people that can help you in different steps of your career path. So I think that's super valuable. From the apprenticeship side of things, just from the perspective of you earn money while you're doing this apprenticeship program. And, there's registered apprenticeships largely where, that's recognized sort of in portable, the certifications that you're earning and things like that, wherever you go. My brother did an apprenticeship program. My dad and lots of my family members were in trades professions and they've gone that route. And, not only are they earning money, they're earning good money and there's incremental increases as you go. And then, they're learning what it is like to work in the field. And now, for example, both of those, my dad and my brother, they were able to move into leadership roles later in their career. But that like experience of being an apprentice really was instrumental in sort of being able to lead folks. Apprenticeships is something that we're increasing, that's a priority. We track it on our floridascorecard.org, but it's a really great opportunity to not take on a lot of college debt and to earn money, but have those certifications and things like that where you're able to take those wherever you go. So I think internships and apprenticeships are two things that we're going to see an increased emphasis on. And I would, encourage you to look into those opportunities because the companies are, when you think of apprenticeship, sometimes you're like, oh, the trades professions are, what we tend to think about. But a lot of companies are actually creating their own apprenticeships for different positions because they see what a value it is to be able to train somebody on the job and pair them up with somebody who's an expert, right? So we're seeing apprenticeships show up in project management and cybersecurity and a lot of different career paths that you don't typically think about, even teachers, right? The new teacher apprenticeship program, because really the best way to be able to jump in and to really learn a job is to do it, right? And so pairing sort of the school part with actually being able to apply it in the classroom and apply it on the job, is so valuable. It helps you get further faster, I think. So.
No, I would agree. We've Pasco Hernando, we originally not too long ago got into the realm of apprenticeships with construction and apartment maintenance. And I'm anxious to hear what my colleagues have to say this afternoon and tomorrow, because there's other apprenticeships, like you mentioned, the teacher apprenticeship model. There's even, and I'm not going to state which college because I may botch it, is looking at nursing apprenticeships to see how to get students into that pipeline faster because we have such a high nursing shortage. So it's looking at other jobs that you don't think about as apprenticeship based, as you mentioned. So more and more companies are looking at that because they not only students get on the job training, but they get in the door faster so the companies can train them how they want them to learn, not necessarily how we as institutions are training. So that's hugely beneficial. Okay, my next question. With the rise of remote and hybrid work models, because we see this, I see this even in my area as well, that we want that flexibility. How should people adapt their skills and expectations for the future job market?
Okay, well, I'll take that question and I'm going to answer it in probably an unusual way because I think it's really up to the individual. But I think if you want a job, all these new hybrid work models and everything, that's great. If you want a career, you really need to make yourself present in your office environment. Because what I've already seen happening in the 4 years, because at Duke Energy, we have embraced many different versions. We have people who are completely remote, we have hybrid, and then we have people who obviously, like our linemen, for example, they have to come to work every single day because the work that they do requires them to be there. But I'm already seeing people who have been with the company now 2, 3, 4 years that no one really knows who they are. Yes, we see these individuals on Teams calls and things like that. But if you really want to develop a career within an organization, you need to be present at that organization, because the way people get promoted, skill is certainly, it's dependent upon your skills, but also you have to know the right people within the organization. So if you're a person who really wants to be mostly remote, I think you need to look at things more from a job basis rather than a career basis.
Yeah, so I would, to speak to that, I think at different points of folks' careers, the situation, the hybrid, the in-person, the remote work maybe matters differently. And so I would echo what you were saying. Early career, it's really, really valuable to observe, to have those interactions. We hear a lot, that folks are looking for those remote opportunities, and that is completely understandable to have that flexibility. I think you're right in saying that, forming the relationships. I know we have some folks that are remote, that are living in other places and things like that. I think the onboarding process is a little slower. It tends to be sometimes with folks that are fully remote, only because they just miss the hallway conversations and things like that. But it's definitely something that's doable, and people are continuing to ask for. I think the hybrid model is kind of the unicorn, but again, some positions are not really conducive to the, hybrid model, or you need to be in the field or what have you. But what I would say in terms of skills for those positions, organization is so important, because, you're hopping from call to call, and you have to have good time management, and also probably managing a lot of emails that maybe could have been conversations. And so how do you sort of figure out a way to really document that and keep that all in your brain? Those skills, some of the employability skills, the organization, the communication, the time management, all of those things that are sort of across industries, are even more important if you're working in a hybrid or remote position, because you're kind of having to do more on your own without having like that person next door, in your office to just ping for easy questions. But definitely is something that we're continuing to see a lot of employers embrace, just depending on the position and the feasibility of it. Parents, I think, if you're a parent, you can definitely appreciate that. As someone who's trying to shuttle, kids around and get to the office and things like that, I can definitely see, again, a different phase of your career, like some things might matter more. And I think some folks, and that's a really good conversation for employers to have of, what are we doing for, folks who need those kinds of flexible schedules, making sure that they're still working, but also, making sure that we're getting good talent, because people have families and have other responsibilities. Like, how can there be a happy medium there? I think that's what we've learned really out of the last 4 or 5 years, is how to maneuver that conversation. So.
No, that's good, because that's something we all grapple with. I even have faculty that say, I want to be remote. So that's a struggle when you want them in the classroom, or there's a need for that from students. So the next one is kind of where I'm looking at as someone who's creating programs for an institution. So what skills or programs should I be looking for at the institutional side to add to the list of availability of programs to prepare workers for the workplace? It's like, what should I be doing as someone who's creating those programs? Or what programs should I be creating?
Yeah, I can answer that and then pass it over. But so obviously we all know that regionally we have our targeted occupations list that will share sort of the high demand careers of the year really. But we also at the Florida Chamber Foundation, I would recommend, and some of our board members received this 2 weeks ago at the event we had, but we are having projections out to 2032 of what the high demand careers will look like. It's called the Top 30 High Demand Careers. You can find that on our website. We print booklets, but basically every single region in the state has projections of what those high growth and high replacement. So folks, maybe there's positions that a lot of retirements are projected and things like that, but also looking at the growth numbers. So that's something that I would look at when thinking about program development. In terms of modality, I think it's important to think about like what is important to have those hands-on experiences. I'm a really big experiential learning proponent. So I think that there's a lot of value in having those hybrid programs where there's some flexibility with some of the stuff, but really in person and being able to get your hands on the work. So I would suggest those two things. I also think that evening programs and just sort of a mix of programs is something we're going to continue to see for the people who are thinking about transitioning careers. So not only are sort of traditional learners, but folks that want to explore a different opportunity or maybe chose something that they're really not that interested in anymore. They want to pair their skills with something else. As well as folks who are working, because we're seeing a lot of folks that are working jobs, have a lot of responsibilities. And so again, that hybrid opportunity is great. But I also think with the online opportunities, we're seeing lots of expansion of online programs. The supports and the faculty training is really important. I developed online courses when I taught at the technical college where I was working before moving here, using the screencasts, like basically all the things that you can sort of like really feel like you're connecting with that faculty member is really, really important. So, instead of just writing everything out on text, like doing the training, and that was part of my role, is to lead the training to develop how can we incorporate video and audio a little bit more effectively. So it's not just a bunch of reading, because everybody sort of takes information differently, but also the connection with the faculty is super important, I think, for student persistence. So.
Yeah, from my perspective, the business community and the education community have to be in lockstep in these conversations.
Mhm.
I will say from, my personal experience, and I work most closely with St. Petersburg College, but we have partnerships with 5 of the state colleges. And, we have shared with the leaderships of the institutions what our needs are. And the institutions have come up with excellent solutions. Again, like I said, in St. Petersburg, we have a lineman's program. In Polk County, we have what we call a network technician. Those are individuals that work inside of our substations. We've got a state college that's doing that. But I think that's because, at least in this area, and from my experience, the leadership of the St. Petersburg College is engaged in things like the downtown partnership, the St. Pete Chamber, Amplify Clearwater. In all 3 of those organizations, there is leadership from St. Petersburg College represented on those boards. So the business community and the educational community is very much connected in this community. And that's why I think we're seeing such success with the programs that we have in place already.
Thank you. I say, Jeff, we need to talk to see about what programs we can offer.
Absolutely.
Because we have space now with our construction apprenticeship, our workforce development center in Pasco County. So we have actual land space. So we need to talk outside of this. So in dealing with the ideas of programs, now one thing that I've grappled with is this whole mindset of going to college, that 4-year degree, you're in a classroom, and changing that mindset to the trades or to manufacturing or to something like the lineman program. So how does an institution change students' mindset to embrace the trade programs? Because I have to get this mindset where I always say I've been in so many manufacturing facilities that they're so clean you could almost eat off the floor. Not that I would, but it's not your dirty place of yesteryear. So how do we change those mindsets?
One of the ways I think you can change that is to ensure that students know that you can make a significant living today in the trades. I'll use the line program again as an example. Starting in that program, you will start at around $60,000 a year. And keep in mind, that is someone who has 14 weeks of training. So someone literally who's 18, 19 years old. I mean, we obviously prefer them to be a little bit older than that, but someone early 20s can be making $60,000 after 14 weeks of training. within 4 years, I mentioned that apprenticeship program, every one of those individuals will be making a six-figure salary. Now, it is very hard work. It's one of those things where not everyone has the capabilities and the skills needed to do that work. But if you can do that work, you can make a very good living doing it. So I think that's one thing, is for people to understand that with the trades, you can make good money. And the other thing about the trades is you will always have a job. I have two business degrees, and I've been fortunate in my career that I haven't been laid off or anything, but I realized that if layoffs were to happen in my company, I'm not as essential as, someone who literally has the skills to keep the lights on every day. And if something should happen and they have to, let's say we did lay off linemen, they could easily go somewhere else in the country and get hired literally tomorrow because they have skills that are just in such vast need in our country.
Yeah, that's excellent. One of the things that I would say is definitely manufacturing and trades has changed in terms of the technology that's needed. And so, if you're into technology, if you're really interested in it, like that is definitely a career path that I would recommend looking into, is some of these sort of manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing positions that we're seeing, come to Florida and increase. The cybersecurity is obviously something that is continue to grow, but I think that we change the mindset if we continue to tell the success stories. And also we realize that people are not in jobs for their entire career like they used to be. And so what I would say, for folks that are sort of early career, is getting a skill like you're saying, and, choosing something with promising pathway is going to be sort of a golden ticket for you, because those skills are always going to be there. You're always going to have that experience, but there's also really wonderful leadership opportunities to grow into. So I think that, continuing to, again, share the success stories. I share my brother and my dad's story all the time. My brother worked in the field for, 7 to 10 years, depending on if you count the apprenticeship time or not. And then now he's a project manager and making really great money. And so this environment that you sort of like maybe start off in is not necessarily where you're going to be. And folks are changing jobs every few years, honestly, now. Not necessarily companies, because I think people are growing within the companies. But I think the biggest thing is walking away many times in those roles without the college debt, and how different your life is when you have sort of when you're making money and you can earn it while you're learning, and then come out with a salary like that, and then after a few years really see an increase, versus, when you have a lot of debt, and a lot of folks do. And I think that's why the conversation is continuing, is like they realize like, oh shoot, now I'm going to have to wait a really long time to be able to buy a house or to be able to do other things. And so many of those programs are designed so that you're earning, and that the ROI is pretty high. The other thing that I think is important, if you're kind of looking into careers, is not necessarily what the salary, the median salary is when you're starting out, but like, what is that trajectory? Because in many of the trades, it grows very quickly. After a few years, an auto mechanic or some of these other careers, aviation mechanic, some of the positions you mentioned, you can make great money after just a few years. Whereas other positions, you do not see that increase unless you move. And some people don't want to move. Starting a new job is hard, right? Every couple of years, it is hard. I've done it. I've trailed for, I've lived in 4 states since 2010. Largely because I'm a trailing spouse, as someone would say. But it's hard to start a new job. And so if you're working on, growing yourself within a company, there's a lot of leadership opportunities that's available, and they're looking for folks who did the work in the field. So.
Thank you. So it's great to hear as far as the opportunities for our students, and especially changing that mindset, because that's something that I know my office, my staff goes out and talks to students, and trying to change that is a struggle. So for students, and this is primarily to Jeff, but we could also change it up for other areas. For workers interested in becoming line workers, what are the essential skills and certifications needed to enter this field? And what does a typical career path look like in Florida?
Well, first off, there's not any what we would call required skills, because we don't require that you have a college degree or anything like that. The skills that you must have to be successful in this career is you have to be able to work in all types of conditions. You have to be able to work in the heat, in the cold. You have to be able to work shift work. You have to be able to, storms are the perfect example. The men and women who do that work, they were working, 16-hour days, for many days on end. So, it does require a commitment to your community, and the ability to understand, complex tasks. That being said, looking at the way our high schools are set up today, there is very few lineman type programs at the high school level. There's been conversations with us among some of the school systems about potentially doing that, but right now that's not there. But things, such as auto mechanics, those skills, while totally different, they're easily, they're interchangeable, because you have to be able to work on complex tasks and understand technology and that sort of thing. So if someone were truly looking to go into that field, that would be the path I would encourage someone to go, is construction related, auto mechanics, because again, they're completely different, but they have such similar requirements. Because at the end of the day, what linemen are really doing is construction work. It's a very specialized type of construction work, but that would be my recommendations of how to get into the field. Now, what happens with a traditional someone who enters that profession, I would say probably about half of the folks that enter the profession, they stay in it for a number of that for their entire careers. Because as Rachel was saying, you can make good money in these professions at the very beginning, and then you accelerate through your career. But also, I would say about the other half move into different positions within the organization. We have a number of our supervisory positions. In fact, our current vice president that covers what we call our North Coastal region, and our former vice president over the Orlando region, they both started as linemen in our company. So they have, over the years, risen dramatically in their careers, because they truly understand the work. And I think that gives them an edge over some people who, have just had management training or whatever. The fact that they know those skills, it certainly provides them with an opportunity to advance within the organization as well.
Thank you. Because again, we're always wondering how we can move up, and as we start off at that entry level, there's always an option. So it's great to hear that. Okay, so I have the final question of the day. How can students leverage networking and mentorship opportunities to embrace their career prospects in today's competitive job market?
I love this question. I'm so happy that we get to address it here. So one of the things that I would share, to kind of piggyback off of the prior question, but also lead into this one, is the importance of employability skills is key. And this will help you not only sort of get leadership to notice you as an employee if you're, showing up, a few minutes earlier on time, a smile on your face, willing to learn something new, willing to step in and help when help is needed. And so those are all skills that everybody can do if you really are conscious about it. Like, what vibe am I giving off right now in my work environment, right? And that really does go a long way, because to be honest with you, mentorship, I talk about this a lot as somebody who, really, as a first generation college graduate, I, didn't have a lot of connections when I was, early career. And now I have lots of connections because the chamber is really created to connect folks and to use data and to create movements and things. But early in my career, when I didn't have a lot of connections, I wanted to be that person who was known to be the hardest worker in the room, right? And that is something that anyone can do. It's like, what does that mean? It means you're organized, you plan ahead, you're willing to help, you're willing to step up when other folks are out of the office or whatever. And that has helped gain mentors over time. And I always say this, it takes one leader who believes in you to really help you advance, get that next opportunity, be a letter of reference. You always want to think like, I want to be on good terms with everybody, because you're going to need references when you apply for jobs. You're going to need somebody to vouch for you when you move to a new area and no one knows you, right? And that is so important. And it really starts with the personality and the connections, and everybody can do that, right? And willingness to learn. Okay. So, you know, as somebody who, you know, maybe you're new to the organization, I think it's really important to think about like, yes, you probably bring a lot of skills and expertise, but sort of like reading the room and understanding the culture is a really important piece, because everywhere is different, right? And so, you know, those sort of skills of being able to navigate company culture, understand like who are the people who are high performers in this organization and how I can connect with them. How can I learn from them, and how can I get them to show me, you know, some of the things that are going to help me grow in whatever way that I want to. I think that's super, super important. It's really helped me as somebody, again, who is a first generation student, like just learn those things, because I wasn't sort of, you know, connected very much early on in my career with some of these folks. And so navigating that space, I think, has been a really great learning experience. And I think, again, it all comes back to sort of the personality and the perseverance and things like that. I wear this necklace somewhere. It says persevere and you got this, right? Like believing that you can do it. You just have to keep going. So.
And what I would add is don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to say yes. And the reason, and what I mean by that is, if you see someone that you envision as a successful person, go up to them, ask them questions. How did you achieve what you achieved? Is there any recommendations that you could give me? Most people are always wanting to help others out. And so I think that is one thing. And then when I say, don't be afraid to say yes, if someone comes to you with an opportunity, and that does happen. I mean, I've had over my career, you know, completely unexpected opportunities. If someone comes to you, and even if you don't feel like you have the comfort level to be successful at what they're asking you to do right now, they would not have asked if they did not believe in you.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can remember, you know, the last time I received a promotion, and the person that was my boss at the time is the current president of Duke Energy Florida. But I didn't feel like I was ready for what she was offering me. But, you know, when I hesitated, she said to me, Jeff, you were more qualified for this than I was when I took this position. And, you know, that was 8 or 9 years ago, and everything's worked out fine. So I would say, just when an opportunity presents itself to you, take it.
Thank you,
Well, thank-
Allison. You want to
thank
add to that?
I do not, just the biggest thing, I can't add to any more than what they said, as far as coming to work, be on time, have a smile on your face, say yes when that opportunity arises, because you never know when it's going to happen. So I was gonna say, Kim, I don't know if we have any questions either in the
We don't
audience.
have a lot of questions. We're looking right now to see if our audience has any questions, but in the interim, while we're collecting them, I would like to add and then ask a question. I would say, don't say no to yourself, because if something happens where the worst thing that can happen is someone says no, then that's just not so awful. And I always say a setback is a setup for success. So maybe whatever, for example, Jeff was offering you didn't work, but then he might know Rachel and he may pair you with her, because what he sees in you still has value. One thing that I struggle with, as they're still collecting the questions, is when people asked us, why are we doing workforce? And what does this mean? It is a challenging question. And since you're in a room full of people who are dedicated to this, because, to your point, thinking about mechanics or aviation or plumbers or electricians, I can think of so many people who make a ton of money and have been gainfully employed for the better part of 3 decades that I've been using them here in a county. But how do you, if you could go further into, how do you all define workforce when you're talking to an everyday person who wants to know, why is there a college of workforce? And why is Duke Energy investing in workforce? And why do you all have a database about workforce? And why is the state investing so much in workforce? If you all can answer some of those questions.
Well, I think for us, I mean, we try to ensure that the employees that we have working for us mirror the community that we serve. And oftentimes, just because of geographies and things of that nature, we're not successful at, ensuring that we have that diverse, and inclusive environment that we seek. And I think by working with partners like SPC and the other state colleges, it helps us identify talent that is literally right outside our door. Because what we had noticed over the years before we had the partnerships with the colleges was that we may be able to hire people, but we were kind of doing hiring at a statewide level, and people may, hire on with us and start their job at St. Petersburg, I'll use as an example. But in our company, I mean, the lineman position is a unionized position. They make the same amount of money, whether they work in Crawfordville, Florida, or St. Petersburg, Florida. And I think for those of you familiar with the St. Petersburg area, you know that the cost of living here is, I don't know what the cost of living in Crawfordville, Florida is, but I would assume it is a lot less. So we saw a lot of movement of people. And it's great that we were retaining those people, but for our op centers in the more expensive areas, they were basically just like training grounds to move to other areas. But when we now partner with the local community colleges and state colleges, the talent that we're hiring lives where we're hiring, and they tend to stay. So I think from a workforce perspective, it strengthens our community because people, they know the community, they want to be where I mean, they already live here. So I think that's where we get the great benefit from the workforce programs that we have with the state colleges.
Rachel, do you want to add?
Sure, yeah, I can add to it. I mean, it definitely depends on who you ask in terms of defining workforce and what that means. In my mind, I think about workforce as really anyone 16 or older that could be working, right? But in it really, from the chamber's perspective, we talk about talent development, and we have programming that really thinks about talent is, starting from birth. Like, what are we doing to build these foundational and skills, early on, so that folks have those skills to be successful. And then also thinking through the different components of workforce, thinking through the things that impact workforce. Childcare is a big thing for the workforce. It's something that we focused a lot on, because if people can't find childcare, then people can't be in the workforce. And so that is just thinking through like all of the supports and the barriers that are needed and the skills development to really, see a workforce that is thriving. And I think that's why there's so much investment in Florida, in our workforce development system and the colleges and all that, because we know that we're going to continue to grow. I think right now it's 750 people a day net are coming to Florida. We're seeing some out migration, but we're seeing, like, the data is showing that we're continuing to grow in companies. We want them to come here. We need a talent pool that is ready for these positions. And it's really exciting for those folks who are staying here to get, aware and prepared for those careers. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity. And I think that workforce is something that I think is doesn't have an end, right? And that's really exciting, because you can always sort of get that certification, upskill or reskill in some ways, and there's opportunities that are there. So that's what I would end on with that.
Thank you. Can you also add, one of the questions from our audience is, you mentioned a projection report or a report where can you share a little bit
Yes.
about how you get that information?
Yes. Okay, so we just released this actually at our recent Future of Florida Forum event. We have it on our Florida Chamber Foundation website, and it's called the Top 30 High Demand Careers. Future of Work is an initiative that's a partnership with our Department of Education and Career Source Florida and the Florida Chamber Foundation, where I work. And so either connect with me, Rachel Ludwig, on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to send you the link to that booklet if you want. Or you can go to our Florida Chamber Foundation website, and under the Future of Work tab, you'll find the top 30 high demand careers, and you can link to it. And what it does, I want to kind of share with you what it is. We've taken projections that basically show the high growth occupations that are median salary or higher. So if we weeded out some of the lower paying positions, because we're really trying to promote these positions that are paying well and have a pathway to a good paying career. We've actually seen that median salary increase. So the last time we did this iteration was in February. The median salary at the time was about $40,800 in Florida. Now it is over 45,000. So we've seen the wages increase in terms of median. So all of the careers on there are at $45,073 or something like that, or higher. And what you'll notice from those top 30, we have the statewide projection, so the overall numbers, but we also have it broken down by region. So getting back to what was shared earlier about people staying put, I think, when we talk about the issues impacting workforce, childcare, housing, insurance, some of these major issues that the chamber is continuing to address with partners, those, we're seeing people stay put a lot more. So knowing what those career opportunities are locally is really, really important, not only from program development from the state college side or other education institutions, but also our talent and saying like, okay, if I enter electrician, HVAC, plumbing, line workers, all of those are on there, construction managers, plus the leadership positions in those roles, aviation, auto mechanic, things that we've shared today, all of those are on there. So not only are they in high demand today, they're going to continue being in high demand into the future, but also leadership positions for those roles. So that's why it's super important to develop, the skills in the areas that are high demand now, but also thinking through like when you ask questions of the employers that you're engaging with, what are the growth opportunities? Because there will be some leadership positions available based on projections, but also based on growth. So.
I think that you all have an incredible resource. And again, I can't see who's in the room, but that information is so crucial to understanding what to do in the future, especially with technology changing so rapidly. We're getting close to wrapping up, but there are a couple of questions, so I'm going to put them all out and then ask you all to answer them in turn. Jeff, from an employer's perspective, how can industry leaders and local companies, what can they do to help bring in new workforces and demographics who might be hesitant or apathetic to join new or developing tracks? And then also for the changing, this is for you, Dean Hale, with the changing landscape of higher education and behaviors of incoming student demands that impact the workforce and industries. How is their ability to retain current, how do they retain current and attract newer workers? And then lastly, for you, Rachel, you mentioned, of course, being a first generation student, which is lovely. How did your passion and personality factor into your career path? So we'll go 1, 2, and 3 if you all can remember all that.
Give me the.
Give you the gist of it.
I was intently listen to all three questions. So.
Yes, but as an employer, basically, how can you bring in new workforce and demographics and people who are hesitant to or apathetic to joining into new or developing tracks?
Well, as an employer, I think it's very important to be engaged in your community. For example, we have in our community, we have economic development corporations, we have chambers. So we stay involved in the organization so we know what's happening in our communities. And we're working with those organizations to bring new companies and new individuals to the community. So I think that's the best way we can, ensure that we're engaged with the community. But now, as far as when you have situations where people may not want to enter your industry or whatever, I think that's where the things we were talking about earlier is show the benefits, the long-term benefits that are available to individuals who do choose careers in this industry. The other thing is, when you think of the energy industry, again, you think of linemen, power plant operators, things of that nature, but understand we have so many different career. I don't know what the number of career categories we have at Duke, but I mean, we have literally people whose specialty is, we have an avian expert who, because, sometimes birds and things can get involved in power lines. So we have people that are, have almost 100% environmental background. We have nurses that work for us. Of course, we have accountants, we have tax people, we have attorneys. I mean, I could just go on and on. So, I think it's important for us to let our community know that regardless of what your skill set is or what your passion is, we probably have a job of some type that would be suited to your skills.
Thank you, Jeff. Dean Hill?
I think the gist was dealing with engagement and keeping students engaged, if I recall, something like that. But
Yes.
I would say finding what the students love. What are they passionate about? And looking at the programs that we offer. If we don't offer, maybe one of our partner schools or sister schools do. Like St. Pete College may offer an item that we don't, because it's entirely plausible, whether it's in workforce or in some of the other areas of healthcare that we might not have, but I know St. Pete College may have. So it's finding out what you truly love and what you're passionate about, and then for us to offer those programs and keep the students engaged. You know, like with our engineering program, adding those robotics pieces, which shameless plug, on November 23rd, we're having our VEX robotics competition at our site, which is high school and middle school students that love that concept of robotics. They're learning about IT. They're building the robot and then moving it around. So that's that joy of robotics and IT and engineering. So adding that into our programs as well. So it's not just coming to the classroom and sitting there and listening. It's getting engaged. It's hands-on work. It's working with the different materials and making sure that we're then also meeting the needs and reaching those employer skills that are required for that entry-level position. So in all, it's making sure that our programs match what our students want, that it's not going to be the sitting in a math classroom or sitting in an English classroom, but playing with robots. I know a lot of students love when we come out and showcase our drones or showcase our welding simulators. So it's kind of showcasing what do they enjoy and then finding that program to match to them.
And I would just add from the higher education space, the system is flexible and nimble and large enough to grow. We presented at the Seminole Chamber of Commerce this week sometime, and the question was asked about how colleges are changing with the times, but they really are. They're meeting the measure of what the workforce needs at this time. And the more innovative spaces you see, the better you see the entire system rise to it. So it's not that it doesn't have its difficulties, but I do think there is a space for all students. And going into the last question about passion and how it got you here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's really important to find something that you really get excited about. You know, work is taking up a lot of time of your day and your life. And so I've always said, you know, I want to be in a job that I'm passionate about. And so, what is that? Well, helping people. You know, I'm really energized by being in a room of people. And not everybody is. You have to take time and understand your balance of like, okay, when do I need some time to like decompress and just and think? But also learning and listening and seeing other people. You know, it depending on, you know, how confident you feel in a space. I think that understanding like there's a lot to learn and there's a lot of really wonderful people that are willing to share. And so kind of understanding kind of how to navigate that has really helped me. But also just, you know, that willingness to learn, I think is super important. And I've always, you know, advocated for folks to get engaged with, you know, organizations or things that are going to help you sort of develop some of those skills that are outside the classroom. And there's lots of opportunities that exist no matter where you do your education. But those like the robotics, I love that. I went to the first robotics competition in Orlando last year and it was amazing. And, you know, just even navigating the room and listening to the teams like share their projects was so awesome. So that really took me back to, you know, what are the things that I used to do? I used to coach. I taught in the classroom for many years. So sort of like bringing that joy really rubs off. And then that sometimes leads you to other opportunities because people are like, hey, I think that you would be good at that training. Why don't you come and join this program? Or, hey, this is available. We're going to, you know, for example, at the college I taught at we're going to develop a leadership pipeline program. And I think that you'd be a good fit for that. Are you interested? Saying yes to those opportunities, right? And always, I mean, not saying that you're completely on a cloud and never really are real about some of the issues, but how do you address that and figuring out how to stay positive and realizing like, I love what you said earlier. What's the worst thing that could happen in this situation? Because most of the time it's not really that bad, right? It is. And I feel like framing a lot of things in life that way has really helped me when there's been frustrating moments that are out of my control, is saying like, what's really the worst that could happen right now? Am I going to care about this in 2 days, 2 months, 2 years? Probably not. And so that has sort of helped fuel joy in the everyday work.
Completely agree. Rachel, thank you so much for sitting on this panel today, especially on your special day. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you for the constant support you give to the college, to the institute, and to our community. Thank you for giving your time today. Dean Hill, it's weird, but I think we pulled it off. Thank you for being an exquisite moderator and for handling it on your side in Orlando with all of your colleagues. I know that wasn't an easy task. We appreciate you stepping up and for being the board chair for the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions. And finally, thank you to our participants today for spending this time. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our exceptional team here that does an amazing work, and we've been on a rampant schedule this week. So I think all are here but one, but Sam Jenkins, our Associate Director, Matthew Lee, our Communications Coordinator, Erin Bryce, our statewide coordinator, Sharon Panoff, who hates it when I say that, but she's our exquisite administrator, and Michael Ballard, who is our student fellow, and Tim Scott, who is not here but does a lot of our work. We are wrapping up this year. It's been a very truncated semester. I do hope that all of you all fared it well. We have 2 more programs that we hope that you join us for. One is ethical implications of AI in the legal system. That is going to be on Tuesday, November 12th. At our Clearwater campus from 12 to 1. And then we have our grand debate, which is a college-wide debate with 4 different colleges: Palm Beach, Eastern, HCC, and SPC. The top winner will get $1,200 and one of the cute little trophies over there, along with a great time. And if you haven't checked out the Institute, we'd like to learn more about us, please follow us. We love your input, particularly student input. Congressman Young believed in the future of our community. He spent a lot of time making sure that Florida was strengthened. Because of his efforts, we have this beautiful think tank. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. Also, please come to our website and share your thoughts. Thank you again for everyone, and I think it's time to wrap up. Thanks so much.